Now I'm in grad school. And it's a very serious business in North America. If those of you who have done grad school in North America, you know what I'm talking about. There's a difference, a palpable difference between it and doing graduate work in Britain or in the UK or in Europe, anywhere. Because in the North American system, you have a whole bunch of seminars and coursework and comprehensives. It's a whole bunch of issues. So it meant deadline, it meant an endless submission of papers and articles and all that to your professors. In Ibadan, while doing my master's, it was always possible to arrive late for a seminar in UI and had a perfectly legitimate excuse rationalized and enabled by Nigeria and her system. Prof, you know what? Did you see the that pothole in Sango had become a crater, and hey God, when are they going to fix it? The roadblock there, I just couldn't pass. And you know, that was a culture of irresponsibility that was enabled and which worked for me. Hey Prof, that paper that you asked us to submit today, since last week NEPA took light. I even tried to write it using Atupankero, but then the kerosene cabal, and you don't know kerosene, no. Perfectly legitimate excuses to justify and rationalize a culture of irresponsibility. And now there I was in Canada. If a paper was due, all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, there was no I couldn't I couldn't go to tell my professor in Canada, and they took light. This didn't. So I started emailing friends. Well, look, I would write Lola Shone or Gaga. Some of my these people, they are too much, Jari, you know, something. So that was when it became clear to me that what I was missing about Nigeria was a whole world of and culture of mediocrity and irresponsibility, you know, which had been made legitimate by the system. Everything that folks in the developed world had come together to hate passionately about their own world and about their own country. No, it shall not be said that this is what defines Canada. It shall not be said that this is what defines the United States. It shall not be said that this is how Britain is. Everything they hate, everything they fear becoming, was what I had grown accustomed to. Was what I had grown. So I was like a fish out of water for the first time, functioning in a system devoid of chaos, devoid of mediocrity, and devoid of irresponsibility and the enabling legitimizing systems and mechanisms which we had built into it. Now, the moment that became clear, really clear to me, was when I then subsequently moved out of, because I started out in literary studies, you know, literature, and subsequently my horizons broadened as I started a career, you know, an academic career, moved on to cultural studies, moved on to sociology, and moved on to the history of nations, you know, the becoming of nations, the philosophy of nations, how nations are built. And I started to read the big thinkers on nation and nationalism, on patriotism and all that. And one of the thinkers that I read the most is a French philosopher called Ernest Renan. And he had written a famous treatise entitled, What's a Nation? What's a Nation? And among the fundamental principles of the becoming of nations and the rise to greatness of nations that you encounter in this guy's work is the idea that a nation, it is made up of a multitude of differences, seemingly insurmountable differences, because peoples come together within a nation space to make a nation. So a nation emerges, he says, from what they have agreed to collectively remember and what they have agreed to collectively forget. What they remember, and that's how you make your memories. That's how you make your collective memories. That's what they did in Dubai. Coming together to make memory, national memory out of nothing. What do we want to remember? But if you look at the forgetting side of things, if you look deeply into it, you discover that a lot of the things that nations, great nations, decide to forget about themselves are things that they overcame unbelievable differences to hate because they do not want to become that. Not that they suspend their differences, they work with their differences to develop a culture of national contempt for certain things. And that is why you think we've got differences and divisions in Nigeria. Sometimes I just laugh. Oh, you know, all these ethnic issues, all these religious flashpoints and all that. You think they don't have those things elsewhere. They've got them. They've got them even in worse scenarios than we can ever dream of. The United States, for starters. I taught there I haven't always been in Canada. I taught in the US university system for 7 years, so I know what I'm talking about. And the culture of hatred and differences, you know, between white and black, between right-wing Christian neocons and left-wing liberals, between it just goes on and on and on. And these are deep-seated, you know, it's so deep that sometimes traveling in the US these days, I nearly feel like wearing, I'm a Nigerian, so that if a white cop sees me, I'm not an African American, don't shoot, I'm a Nigerian, you know. That's how bad it is. We don't go about shooting each other in this country because we vent our ethnic differences, we vent our, you know, we have all kinds of pathologies and all that, but it hasn't got to the point of a policeman with, that's an Igbo man, boom. That's a Yoruba man, boom. So they've got those differences. But you know where they suspend the differences? I found out, living there, working there, teaching there, traveling, crisscrossing that country, and studying their sociology and being part of them, that there is nothing an American hates more than the idea of his nation, of his country, being second to any other nation. It shall not be said. They hate it with a passion. That is when Republic, what? Second to China, Kamali. So all the differences, the invidious nature of theirs, everything melts. Everybody, they have that unifying national ideal of contempt for the second position. It's a passionate something that comes from deep within. It shall not be said. Don't even say it. Don't say it. And so they hate that idea with a passion and then come together, work on their differences to build it. The same thing, you know, the French. They have this proverb, impossible. Who are French speakers in this room? Impossible, c'est pas français. Impossible, c'est pas français. Basically, impossible is not a French citizen. That is what it means. The word impossible is not a French citizen. So despite all the sociology of the Frenchman, what they call l'œuvre de la République is built on that. The work of the Republic. On the idea that, how can you say that something is impossible when you are French? You go and check your DNA, you must be Italian. Go and check. It cannot. So don't tell the Frenchman that something is impossible for France. They hate that idea. We are in a church. They reject it in Jesus' name. They reject it. Over and above all differences. And the same thing in Canada. You see, if you look at the annual listings of the best places to live and work in the world, you'll see that Canada is in that perpetual competition with Australia. You know, it's always oscillating between the two of them. Canadian cities, Australian cities, you know, Calgary, Vancouver and all that. And then sometimes it moves to Scandinavia, to Norway. That thing, the idea that we are the best place to live on earth, you have no idea how much it galvanizes the Canadian. And so the fear, it's not even thinkable that we would not be. They hate it with a no. We've got to maintain it.